Today's tutorial is all about the clone stamp tool. So the clone stamp tool allows me to, it's sort of like the spot healing tool, you know, your little band-aid tool, except for it allows me to choose where I want to select the healing pixels to come from. So the way that we're going to use this is to remove these people on the beach. So we've got Zoe sitting up on one of those cool old trees that was on the beach from our eco tour in Savannah and Charleston. Well, this is Charleston, I guess. And so we want to take these people out so that way we're left with just Zoe. And then also her hair is blowing a little bit in the wind here, so we're going to take out some of the hair over on this side just so it looks a little bit better. So the first thing that we're going to do, like always, is Command J. So that way we have a copy of our background layer. Then we're going to press the S key. When you do that, it should open up this little clone stamp tool here. Over to the right, you see there's a clone stamp and the pattern stamp. Make sure you're on the clone stamp tool. Okay, once you've done that, you're going to choose the area that you want to use for the pixels. Okay, so I'm going to hold down the Alt key or the Option key, and then I'm going to click, and then that picks up and allows me to stamp right over the middle of the body there. Okay, so I'm going to pick things that look similar. So again, I'm going to click the Alt key, and then I'm just going to do ever so slightly, just little by little by little. And it actually works best if you can kind of zoom in just a little bit here. So again, the Alt key, and then click, click. And then now we are just left with, I believe that's Gracie over there, her head. So let's take that out because that looks a little freaky. Okay, and then here, and you want to make sure that they line up. Okay, so if I did like this and then I had the line there, that would just look really bad. Okay, so you want them to be very similar in nature. So I'm going to go ahead over on this side. I'm going to take out these two girls right here as well. Okay. And it's a slow process, but the slower you go, the better of an effect that you'll have, because you want it to look realistic. You don't want it to look like you've gone through and used the clone stamp tool. And if you mess up in any areas, you can just go in and fix it. It's no big deal. Okay, then we're going to go over on this side and do the exact same thing here. Okay, now up against this log, it's a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to zoom in nice and close, so that way I make sure that I don't have any, any overlap there. Okay, so once you zoom out, you see the before and after. We've gotten rid of all of that. Okay, so I'm going to take a snapshot of that. Remember, you want to make sure you always have your history up there. If you can't see your history, go up to Window and make sure history is selected, and then typically it'll come up and there'll be like a menu over here. You can drag it over so that way it stays on your right hand side. It's just a lot better to have that there. Okay, the next thing, now that I've got that, I'm going to go ahead and flatten the image because I'm happy with that. And then I'm going to do Command J again, just because I want to have a nice copy of the background layer. And I'm going to zoom in right here for Zoe's hair. Okay, again, I'm going to use the clone stamp tool, so I'm going to select S and then Option. And I'm going to go right in here, just nice and tight, and just kind of bring some of that hair so it's not flying out in the wind everywhere. It was a very windy day when we were out there, so it's just kind of, it's natural for that to happen. You can go as wild and as crazy with this as you want to. I wouldn't take off her full head of hair because that would just be weird. Okay, but that just makes it so that way it's not completely there. Okay, all right, so as of right now, I've got everything clone stamped out, and I feel like this looks a lot cleaner. So again, I'm going to go ahead and take a picture of that, a snapshot, and then I'm going to do a flatten of my image. The next thing that I want to do with this particular photo is her face looks a little bit dark on this side, and so I'm going to lighten that up just a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to go to curves. I'm going to bump up the midtones just a little bit. Now, as you notice, it lightened up the entire picture, which I don't want because then I start to lose detail. So on my layer mask, I'm going to invert that so it hides most of everything. And then I'm just going to brush back in the area that I want. So I'm going to get my brush key. And with your clone stamp tool and your brush tool, you want to make sure that the hardness is down all the way. Otherwise, it's going to look choppy. You're gonna be able to see that you absolutely use the clone stamp tool. Okay, so I'm just gonna brush this right over the side of her face, just a little teeny tiny bit, just to brighten it up a little. Okay, so I actually might bring this down just a little bit. I don't want it to look fake. Okay, so again, I'm gonna flatten my image there. I feel like this image could be a little bit warmer, and so I'm going to use my color balance to do that. So the opposite of the blue is the yellow, so I'm just going to bring in a little bit of warmth this way. Okay, and let's try maybe a little bit of red. And that gives it just a nice, pretty, I don't know, almost a filter effect like you might see on Instagram. It just jazzes it up a little bit. Okay, so I'm happy with this image, and so I'm going to save it. So File, Save As. Make sure you save it as a PSD file and as a JPEG file, and then you'll submit the JPEG file to my GAC.